Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and before we get to the interview, I just wanted to reach out and make sure you knew how valuable ratings and reviews on iTunes are to the success of this pod. So if you enjoy these, head over there and let me know. I'd really appreciate it, and thanks for being in the conversation. How surprising was the Blake Griffin trade? Who got the better of the deal between the Pistons and the Clippers? And who else is on the trade block? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown Emergency Podcast. Whoop, whoop. We have a trade today. The Woj Bomb dropped it, and I'm glad to bring on James Holas, a.k.a. Snotty Drippin' on Twitter, to discuss in a much-needed analysis of what's happening with this trade. So James, how are you doing, my man?
I'm still, my ears are still ringing from the Woj Bomb, and from the ShamWow. Out of nowhere, we saw the Detroit Pistons and Clippers are in serious discussions, and like 10 minutes later, the trade went down. So it's I'm still trying to process what this trade means.
I know, and also because when the more information came out, they had been talking about it for like 6 days, and yet nobody had that, I don't think, until now. So crazy. All I had heard was Avery Bradley maybe going to OKC, and I had tweeted out that would have been a real concern, I thought, for the Warriors, because that would make them match up again pretty well with them. And
you think so?
Well, I mean, I think Avery Bradley's a really good defender. All of a sudden, all this slander of him on Twitter is out there. I don't know what happened or how, but right? Do you not agree that Avery Bradley's a really great defender?
He is a very good one-on-one individual defender. He makes guys work really hard. The Russell Westbrooks and the Steph Currys. But when you look at a team like you look at a team like OKC, and what they need is length and versatility, right? That's what they're built on. And so, like, he's 6'2", he's undersized for a defender. He can't really guard threes. He can't guard the bigger twos. And off ball, when he's not guarding the ball, he's kind of useless defensively. So that's my thing with him in OKC.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I never really noticed. I know he's slight, and so if there's a switch and he has to guard like Kevin Durant or something, that's a problem. They can kind of take him down. I can see that. But then again, he can do that with any two guard anyway. But let's go over the trade real quick before we get too far in here. The Clippers will receive Tobias Harris, Avery Bradley, Boban Marjanovic, and a first and second round draft pick, league sources said. The Clippers are sending Brice Johnson and Willie Reed to Detroit alongside Griffin to match up salaries and whatnot. Who do you think wins this deal?
So I know we like to do the whole rapid breakdown of a trade. I am going to take the cop out and say to be determined.
Okay.
If you look at the surface, getting a player like Blake Griffin, I think he's averaging almost like 23, 8, and 5 this year. And sure, he's dealt with injuries, but he's a supremely talented player. It's funny how, because of the rise of the new unicorn power forward and big man, he kind of seems like the forgotten star, right? The guy, he's an all-star. And injuries, sure, have maybe robbed a little bit of his explosiveness, but the guy can really play. So if you look at on the surface, the Pistons get, a bona fide all-star power forward to go with their bona fide center who's, should be an all-star. He got snubbed this year. And, they gave up a good, not great scorer in Tobias Harris. They gave up a guy who's been disappointing in Avery Bradley and some picks. So, and Boban, is very gently used in Detroit. So you would maybe say Detroit won the trade on the surface, but let's see what's next for the Clippers. Because if they were trying to, clear space, they just signed Blake to that big deal. If they were just trying to clear space and there's more moves on the horizon, and let's say this summer they fill their roster with a LeBron-sized contract, then you got to say they won, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm actually kind of studying the Pistons roster for a minute just to see, because they gave up 2 starters, and they're now going to pair Blake Griffin with a guy who is basically like an DeAndre Jordan. So we can say that would work because it worked in LA for pretty well. I mean, they never broke all the way through, but it worked pretty well. Granted, they did have CP3 alongside them, which was a real key for them. Now you're going to replace that with a Reggie Jackson, I suppose, at the point guard position. And I suppose I just don't know exactly what Detroit is really trying to do here now, because they've I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. I don't see a future. I can't sort of trace what Stan Van Gundy is intending to do here.
So let's see. There's an old adage that you want to add star power at any cost. It helps on the floor and it helps at the box office. We know Detroit has been famously this year struggling as far as for attendance. They have this brand new spanking arena and nobody's coming to see them play. So a guy like Blake Griffin, he's going to put butts in seats. That's one thing. Another thing is he's still very talented. So you get him, and let's say you can find a way to add some shooters around him. Reggie Jackson's a great pick and roll point guard. He's not a top 5 guy, obviously, but he's a good player when he's healthy. Andre Drummond's like you said, he's kind of DeAndre-like. He's not the defender, rim protector, but he's very athletic and he can do things around the rim. So I mean, adding talent is adding talent. So I'm kind of with you. I don't see this as a huge step forward for Detroit, but I don't know if it's a bad thing either.
Fair enough. And, I think Willie Reed is serviceable as a second big man off the bench. Haven't really seen much of Brice Johnson, so I don't know what's happening with him. But they give up the picks as well. Now, we should say the picks are protected. So in 2018, it's protected 1 through 4. But I don't think they're going to get 1 through 4 by next year, right? They're pretty much 500-ish, right? So that pick is probably going to convey to the Clippers this year in 2018.
I mean, yeah, and getting first round talents. That's not a bad thing. So I mean,
yeah, that's true.
These are two teams that were kind of middle of the pack, one in the East, one in the West. And so are they shuffling their decks on the Titanic? Maybe, but I mean, I feel kind of like the Pistons were going nowhere fast. With Reggie Jackson, he's oft injured. I feel kind of the same about the Clippers. The injuries again derailed their season, even though they had some interesting pieces. But Pat Beverly's gone, so I guess this is the Clippers starting to hit the plunger, and Detroit is shifting paths from what they had, which was just a pick and roll with Reggie Jackson and Drummond, and they're adding he's a bona fide star, man. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It could very well make Reggie better because Blake can take some of the ball handling duties away from him and allow him to just attack in different ways. So I can see something happening there, and I suppose they don't want to be stuck where they are, which is sort of the purgatory of 8th, 9th spot and never getting a better pick. The problem is they gave up their pick, so they don't get to reload a little bit with some talent this year in Detroit. If we shift to L.A., I mean, this is an end of an era. I was actually thinking that, people were kind of coming at me on Twitter for this, but I'd always felt like when DeAndre Jordan decided to stay in L.A. instead of going to Dallas, it was a mistake. And you kind of feel like, what was that all about? They convinced him, he came all the way back, whatever, and now he's the only guy left. What do you think about that?
I mean, you know what? Absolutely. If it got to that point where he's, he was basically almost signed with Dallas, and the Clippers had to come in the whole hostage situation, which I know we know it's like a little hyperbolic and overblown, but the fact that it got to that point, I mean, let's be real now. We can see it. Blake Griffin and DeAndre didn't really. Well, I guess DeAndre and Chris Paul got along okay because I heard that they still talk. But
really,
that he, yeah, because I think he said that that when he was throwing shade at Blake in that interview after the game, he was like, yeah, I talked to Dre and Woj Johnson. He just didn't name Blake, and then he said Lou Will is the real they got the man Lou. So maybe no matter what, the point is we knew there was issues in that team's locker room. Mm-hmm. We knew that DeAndre felt underappreciated, and his first instinct was to go to Dallas. And, they got him to walk back on that. And, like you said, he should have probably followed his heart and went to Dallas.
Well, and I say that because, of course, everything that you couldn't have predicted in L.A. as far as injuries happened. But, the people who were yelling at me were like sort of now quoting me what Dallas did the last couple of years. But I'm like, that you're assuming that like if DeAndre went there, he would give them nothing, right? Like he would have given them 14 and maybe a little bit more because who knows if they were going to actually promise to get him some more shots. But who knows if Carlisle could probably do something. But he probably gives them 14 and 12 and a block and a half. And I mean that's got to be some more wins for them paired with Dirk and whatever, I don't think it would be any different. In fact, that year that he stayed, whatever the first year was after the banana boat, there was moments through a lot of those games where the records were pretty much identical. So it was almost like, gosh, if they're identical and he went to Dallas, they would have been a better record in a better situation as opposed to always fighting, always arguing. Certainly, it was dysfunctional to say the least, and he wanted to get away from that. But let's look at the roster now with LA. It's kind of a fun, intriguing roster, but I guess I had seen Woj tweet, but maybe I was dreaming, that the Clippers had no intention of tanking and they were trying to build for this year. But that doesn't seem to be the case now. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I saw some. Was it Woj or Shams? One of them had tweeted that the Clippers were still shopping DeAndre Jordan and Lou Williams, and they wanted a combination of draft picks and young players. So I mean, maybe Ballmer and company are trying to hedge their bets, right? Where sure they're going to shop guys, but they're saying they're still going to play hard and they're not really tanking. We'll see, man. But I don't look. I like Tobias Harris as a scorer, right? If you put him as your second or third option, that's great. Avery Bradley's been struggling, but maybe now he's back with Doc Rivers. Maybe we got something there. I mean, it's still not a very good team. Teodosic, is he back now? Is he healthy again? I think I saw he had I don't think he re-injured himself. But, now you got Teodosic, Avery Bradley, Tobias plays the 3-4, Wes Johnson plays the 3. Is that a good team with DeAndre in the middle? It's not really.
Well, I mean, they're a game out of the 8th spot, and they're just almost at 500. And remember, they've dealt with a lot of the injuries. And I guess I have to find out what Patrick Beverley's up to because I don't know if he's coming back or not. Do you? I can look it up real quick. But
yeah, he's out for the season.
Oh, that's right. Okay, but Teodosic can stay healthy. Obviously, offensively, he is really good and really helps them. And you throw in those guys, Avery. It's an upgrade in some respects because it's 2 players they're now going to incorporate. They found a nice little diamond in Ty Wallace. I had him on the show the other day, and he's been doing really nicely as a rookie. He's scoring 12 a game and just kind of filling out the stat sheet across the board. So they have another guy who can come off the bench now for them who's solid. You have DeAndre. I don't know. It's either smoke and mirrors. Montrezl Harrell is a guy who I really enjoy watching play. He's been really good for them in his little limited role. I don't know. I think that there's something here for some reason, but you're right. On paper, it doesn't look so hot.
I'll say this, man. We saw Doc, early in the 2000s take a Magic team that was, injury bitten, and they won like 41 games, and I think they might have snuck into the playoffs. This is without Grant Hill and with Tracy McGrady, I think dealing with injuries. And I think, that was one of he made his name as a great coach doing the most he could with a little bit on rosters, right? Even earlier this season, even once Blake went down, they started winning games a little bit. Lou Will started taking off. People were saying this is one of Doc's finest coaching jobs. So, hey, if he can cobble something together and get these guys to do, something, that's cool. But what does it really mean? What does it really mean going forward for this franchise? They just had 2 bona fide all-stars, actually 3 if you want to count DeAndre, and now they're down to DeAndre.
Yeah.
And their return for it hasn't been great. You know what I mean? So I feel bad for Clipper fans, right? Because this is Los Angeles we're talking about. This is not some podunk town. And the fact that, Blake was he was a Los Angeles type player, right? Glitz, glamour, a lot of fun to watch. Chris Paul, he wasn't really Hollywood, but he's a high echelon player. And now you're down to a guy who dunks from 3 feet.
Yeah. That is very true. And also, it's interesting because to me, Doc was on the hottest of hot seats. Like, could have been fired, even though he was skating away with the injuries as a good excuse. But now it almost feels like he's pivoted into a situation where if he wants to, be part of the rebuild, he's part of this. He's part of the franchise now. He can actually, not lose his job for this. The expectations will go down as they slowly build. He didn't want to do that in Boston. But maybe he likes L.A. a lot better. Who knows? Maybe the weather is more agreeable. But you know what I mean? So I feel like he's kind of dodged a bullet here.
That's the funny part to me is that, the big thing with him in Boston where he was a legend for winning that championship, they let him, they traded him and got him out of his contract and deal because he didn't want to be part of a rebuild. And, here we are. It's quite a few years later. but he's about to be part of a rebuild. But like you said, he's in Los Angeles, and it's different when you have GM powers and you're the coach. Well, no, I'm sorry, they took away his GM title. But still, you're in Los Angeles, like you said. So he's older. He's making a lot of money too. So, and who knows? Maybe they move on from Doc also. Maybe it's maybe the team just says, hey, it's time for us to burn it down and do something else.
Yeah, and that's fine. And I'm always about that because I feel like the last thing you want to do is get stuck in that position. The irony is that if you are building, you might end up sort of passing through the 8th or 7th spot for a year while you're trying to get up to that next level. But when you get there for a few years in a row and it looks like there's just no hope in sight, your draft picks aren't going to convey, and you're not going to be able to get enough new talent or sign anybody, then it's like just tear it down and start over. And they certainly gave it the good old college try. So the question now is out of that whole, really great run with the big three in LA, are they going to ultimately put themselves in a decent or better or good position going forward? Let's say they do trade DeAndre. That's the good question is are they going to be able to, what they get back in return, will that be enough, ultimately for the talent they gave out, I guess is the question.
No, and we've seen a lot of trades now that seem very lopsided. And sure, maybe down the road things turn out. If they can make a few more moves, like I said, if they clear cap space and they end up signing a couple big guys this summer, then yes, it's worth it, right? But as of right now, I mean, Chris Paul's a top 3 point guard of all time. He left for Pat Beverly and Sam Decker. Blake Griffin is, I get it. He's been kind of overrated lately. People say he's overrated, and the game might have quote unquote passed him by. He's averaging almost 23, 8, and 5. Those are amazing numbers. And they get back to Tobias Harris, who's averaging 18 and a decent defender, Avery Bradley. So it doesn't seem like it adds up, especially in a team like I said, a town like Los Angeles. But let's give this. Jerry West is part of this, and he's shown that he's a great talent evaluator, and he can kind of make things happen when it comes to building teams, right? So I guess we got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and by the way, I think that this is probably as good as they're going to get for Blake. I mean, look, they got 2 starters, they got a first-round pick, and plus, Boban. I mean, that's actually not a bad haul, and then all they had to give up was Willie Reed and another player. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, they did as well as they probably were going to do because you never probably ever get the most value you can. I was surprised by Blake's performance this year. It was better than I kind of thought it was going to be based on what we had seen the last couple of years. He has seemed to recover as well as he can from all the injuries in the past. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would definitely give a pat in the back to Jerry and the front office in LA for getting a pretty decent haul here. I have to check. Do we know the contract status of Tobias and Avery Bradley as far as how many years left on their contracts?
Bradley he's making like $7 million a year, and he's a free agent this summer.
Okay. Well, that's
Tobias. That's they got to pay him this summer, or this is like his tryout. Somebody's going to try to pay him this summer, and I think Tobias has another year at almost $18 million a year.
Oh no! What I'm seeing here is that in 2018-19 he goes down to 14.8. His contract goes down.
Does he? Oh, he had a de-escalating contract. Okay.
Yeah. So that's not too bad. I mean, that's not, Tobias can play the role that Blake played, at least on offense. Well, you know what? Blake wasn't a great defender anyway, so it's not like they're going to lose much on that end. So, you could probably get a reasonable version to some degree. I don't think you're going to get it in the playmaking areas, obviously, or post, but you get some, a similar version of scoring from him. I just want to check his the 3-point percentage. And you know what? He's now, at this point, an elite 3-point shooter on high volume.
Yeah, Tobias has been really good. He's been really good this year. I mean, I think it's muddied because Detroit had all the other injuries. Yeah. But he's been really solid. And let's see. Guess what? Now we can see another former Twin Towers. We all feel bad for Boogie Cousins going down, and we loved what him and Brow were bringing. Now we get to see Boban and DeAndre.
Oh,
dominate.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to play together. Do you?
They're not. No, of course they're not. But
that'd be fun.
It would. I mean, you know what? We might. You never know. Against a big lineup, let's say OKC comes to town and Steven Adams and Melo's down on the floor, they might try it or something. But it's
well. Yeah, no, there's somebody else who actually no. It would have been Boogie and Brow, but either way, I mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Boban's probably not going to play at all. I feel like he's just a curiosity, which is too bad because there have been moments we've seen where he has skill. He's just so slow.
He's just so slow, man. He's very skilled, and I feel bad for him because he plays hard, and it seems but like you said, he's just kind of a curiosity. And I feel like people almost make fun of him, which I don't like, right? Because he's a good player, he's talented.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I guess this season kind of a sunken cost for the Clippers, right? When they do something like this, and moving forward, I guess they're going to see what they got, but they have a few weeks until trade deadline, and then they gotta.
Yeah. Well, Dave was telling us last night he thinks it's going to be a pretty busy trade deadline, which would be different from, I think, at least the last few years, as far as my memory works, which is terrible these days, is that it's been pretty, anticipation and then not much. So if that's the case, this is certainly a bang to start off the proceedings with. And then, I kind of remember who else. So we have DeAndre, we have possibly DeAndre, possibly Lou. I mean, I think Lou must be the top of the list for most other teams. They would love to have him.
Yeah, but I think the only thing holding that up is that he's going to be a free agent this summer too, right? So you are getting a short-term rental, and if they're asking for a first rounder, that's tough. That's really tough to give a first rounder for a few months of as great as he is, And so that's it's going to be it's going to be interesting, man. Then we got guys like Kemba Walker who might be on the move. It's going to heat up here soon, I think.
Yeah, another team that's probably Charlotte, just needs a shakeup. I think the Wizards, by the way, I've been saying this every time I have an episode now. People are going to be tired of it, but the Wizards, I think the Wall, Beal, Gortat experiment is kind of run its course.
Oh, for sure. They got so much money tied up in Wall, Beal, and Porter right now. Are you saying they move one of those big three? Because I know they'd like to get somebody to replace Gortat, right? Gortat, I think he's on his last legs. Yeah, and he's fine, but he's not going to move the needle.
I would say Gortat for sure, but like either Beal or Wall, and then the question becomes who would you want? And I was talking last night about it. I'm like, I think I would probably end up taking Beal at this point, which is crazy, but I think that's what I would do.
So you're saying if you're the Wizards, you stay with Beal and you move Wall?
Yeah.
I agree. I've been saying this for a minute that I think one of the real issues with Washington is that power struggle between Wall, who's the incumbent, he's the quote unquote star, and Beal, who's actually I think the better player right now, and he's younger, and so like that's been I think one of the issues with them is that even if it's not a conscious power struggle, it's a thing.
Right. Well, we also have some other ideas about maybe George Hill being traded and maybe going to the Cavs, because the Cavs obviously are got to be the biggest in the market here to try and find something. What are your ideas on that?
The Cavs have to do something. Roster-wise, this is just it's a poor fit. They're having personality issues, chemistry issues, and while George Hill I think would be a good fit, from what I'm hearing, that like those talks are kind of dead because I think they're trying to either say, hey, they're gonna buy George Hill out and then Cavs could sign him, but he's like, I'm not taking less money. That's one of the things I heard. I mean, it's a tough situation in Cleveland because LeBron James and the front office have compiled this roster that there's a bunch of players that kind of nobody really wants.
Right. I agree, and no one probably wants to help the Cavs, right? Like that's the other thing.
I think teams, as we saw with Boston and Cleveland, it doesn't matter, right? If the teams think if I'm going to improve my team, I don't care who I'm dealing with. I just don't.
Okay,
like J.R. Smith, J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson. These are like Tristan. I think still has some kind of value, but he's making a ton of money.
Oh yeah.
J.R. Smith has been almost unplayable. He's been so bad this season. Who wants to take on his money? I think he's making almost $14-15 million a year. So it's like, who else do they got? Jeff Green? Who wants Jeff Green right now? He's fine. He's fine in Cleveland, but who's going to give up anything of value for him?
And Isaiah Thomas, but no one wants him either. I think Kevin Love is the one they have to trade. He's the guy who's got the most value.
I've been on that train. I was, we heard tale that they might be able to get Paul George for Kevin Love, and I was like, that's a move they got to make. That's a modern player that you get for a guy like Paul George. I mean, a guy like Kevin Love, who's good, but against the upper echelon teams like the Golden State Warriors, Paul George is much more valuable than Kevin Love.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't know why OKC would ever do that. I mean, it'd have to be. I don't know. I mean,
it's too late now. I just meant when Paul George was in Indiana and there was talk about that deal going down.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think once I'm pulling for OKC. The Robertson injury is gonna, make it a little bit a lot tougher for them as far as winning games and contending. But Paul George seems kind of happy, so I'm pulling for him to re-sign in Oklahoma City.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, that'll be interesting. I guess we'll have to find out how well they do, if that's going to influence them or not. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm just trying to quickly scan to see anything else about talking about people who are on the trading block. It looks like Wes Matthews could be on the move again. There's some value there to a veteran team, or that's got needs one last little piece to shore up something in the backcourt. But it's really intriguing, and I can't wait to find out what happens more. I know we're gonna have at least a few more of these trades, and probably some big names, and it'll be exciting.
Keep eye on the Thunder. With Robertson going down, they would like to get another defender in there. I keep hearing Avery Bradley. I'm not a big fan of that one. I thought maybe somebody like Jonathan Simmons would be great, and he's not making too much money. But let's see if Orlando wants to do that. Courtney Lee should be a target for them because I think he'd be a perfect fit in Oklahoma City. I don't know what they would how that deal would look, but I really like that one. So a guy like Marco Bellinelli would be good in Oklahoma City because he would give them at least a lot of scoring pop, either with the second unit or the first unit. So Oklahoma City, I'm pretty sure Presti has something up his sleeve.
For sure. I wouldn't be surprised. And they're going to try. If they can pull it off, they will. But we'll have to wait and see. Although they do have by committee some of these young athletes that can plug in and do well. And it was interesting because they kind of now with Robertson, they are an elite elite defensive team, and then pretty average on offense. And when he goes down, they bump up pretty high on much higher on offense, and then they're like they're okay on defense. But you know what? Record wise, it seems to be better for them without Robertson, which is kind of weird, but that's an interesting thing. So they might try and do it by committee with Hustis and the other guys out there. So we'll have to wait. And again, how much they want or how much they're going to give up is interesting. And then with that in mind, what Paul George is going to do. So, well, James, I can't thank you enough for coming on and breaking this stuff down. Emergency podcast, great stuff. And I can't wait to get cracking on the video to actually use some footage to explain how this all fits together in both LA and Detroit. I guess I might have to wait, though, because they might move some of these guys again, right? The Clippers might kind of keep trading.
And they might keep moving, but I mean, this is going to be, I'm glad the trade season started off early and we get to, we don't have to wait until after the All-Star break. So this will be fun. Absolutely. Well, awesome stuff. Thanks for joining me tonight. And we will talk to you very soon, I hope. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, James?
Coach, you know I'm in.